کنفرانس پارلمانی در مجلس عوام انگلستان در ادامه کهکشان مقاومت ایران سال 1402-2023 برای اعلام بیانیه مشترک 525 تن اعضای مجلسین عوام و اعیان از همه احزاب در حمایت از قیام مردم ایران و طرح 10 ماده‌ای خانم مریم رجوی برای یک جمهوری دمکراتیک با جدایی دین و دولت. قسمت دوم.
سخنرانی‌های دیوید جونز، نماینده مجلس عوام و وزیر سابق برگزیت، بارونس اولون، عضو مجلس اعیان انگلستان، بارونس ورما، عضو مجلس اعیان انگلستان، معاون پارلمانی وزارت توسعه بین المللی 2016، ترزا ویلیرز، نماینده پارلمان انگلستان، وزیر محیط زیست 2020، استیو مککیب، نماینده پارلمان انگلستان، عضو عالی رتبه کمیته خزانه‌داری دولت 2010، سر راجر گیل، نماینده پارلمان انگلستان، معاون پیشین حزب محافظه‌کار، رئیس پیشین شورای اروپا.
دیوید جونز خطاب به خانم مریم رجوی: ما تلاش‌ها و رهبری شما را در لحظه بسیار حساس تاریخ کشورتان می‌ستاییم، چرا که به میلیون‌ها ایرانی که به دنبال آینده‌ای بهتر هستند امید و آرامش می‌بخشد.
بیانیه اکثریت نمایندگان عوام و اعیان بر 2 نکته کلیدی مهم تأکید می‌کند. اولاً مردم ایران همه اشکال دیکتاتوری را نفی می‌کنند، اعم از حکومت مخلوع سلطنتی یا رژیم ظالم مذهبی. ثانیاً ما راه حل ایرانی را که شما خانم رجوی در برنامه 10 ماده‌ای خود برای آینده ایران مطرح کرده اید به رسمیت می‌شناسیم و از آن حمایت می‌کنیم.
I think very important discussion on Iran when the Tehran regime claims to have successfully overcome the nationwide uprising and to have defeated what it describes as a conspiracy by the enemy and by foreign states. At the same time, not one day goes by without the state media and the regime's own officials warning about the growing popular dissent, the growing support for the organized resistance, and the more popular protests that threaten the regime's very survival. The number of executions in Iran has now reached unprecedented levels over the last few months, and the regime is showing by its own actions that it has not been able to crush the uprising, despite its claims to the contrary, and after months of often really brutal oppression. So today we're going to make an important announcement of a new policy statement by a very large number of members of parliament and peers, more than 525 British parliamentarians from both houses, and I'll be referring to that in a few minutes. But there can be no one really better to brief us on the current situation in Iran by the push of the people in Iran to realize their democratic aspirations. You lead the most organized Iranian opposition against the regime. Your resistance movement has been at the forefront of the struggle for a free and democratic Iran for many years, with a viable platform for the future. And you have been the primary source of exposing the regime's clandestine nuclear weapons, the human rights abuses, and state terrorism. We do applaud all your efforts and leadership at what is a very critical moment in your country's history, and it's providing hope and belief to millions of Iranians seeking a better future, Iranians indeed from all over the world. And many of us in this parliament have been witnessing this firsthand in working with your staff here in the UK, and again They do an absolutely wonderful job in promoting the cause of freedom here on behalf of the Iranian people. They're tirelessly advocating for the people of Iran and advancing their democratic aspirations and pushing for a new revolution. And what I take from your remarks is that the people of Iran have indeed made their decision. And they will continue their protests and stand up to the repressive forces of the regime, and particularly of the IRGC, until they have established a free and democratic republic in Iran. And I'm therefore pleased to announce, as you touched on already in your remarks, that a strong cross-party majority of backbench members of parliament and peers in our parliament stand with you and your people in the difficult struggle ahead. In a statement that's been released today, 525 MPs and peers have declared their support for the people of Iran in their desire for a secular and democratic republic where no individual, regardless of religion or accident of birth, has any privilege over any other. And in our statement, the majority of backbench MPs and peers highlight two crucial key points as the prospect of a free and democratic Iran is kept alive by the brave people of that country and their organized resistance. First, the Iranian people reject all forms of dictatorship, be it that of the deposed monarchical rule or the tyrannical theocratic regime that is currently in place. And secondly, and most importantly, we recognize and support the Iranian solution, which you, Mrs. Rajvi, have put forward in your 10-point plan for a future of Iran. It stands for free elections, freedom of assembly and expression, abolition of the death penalty, gender equality, the separation of religion and state, autonomy of Iran's ethnicities, and a non-nuclear Iran. And as we reiterate in our statement, it is for the Iranian people to decide their own future. And they have a real, viable and democratic alternative in the shape of the NCRI and the plan that you have devised. This is a major evidence of parliamentary support, and it adds to the growing momentum and international recognition of the organized resistance movement, the NCRI, manifested in recent weeks with the support of more than 110 former world leaders, 1,200 mayors and councillors across the United Kingdom, and the majority of the parliamentary assemblies of Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland for a similar worded statement that has been issued today. This united local, national and indeed international support contradicts the disinformation and demonization of the organized resistance movement by the regime, which, according to newly revealed documents, has been a top priority for its leaders in Tehran and the main task of the regime's intelligence ministry. And of course, we know that the Ministry of Intelligence didn't stop at a widespread demonization campaign against the NCRI in the West and in Western media. But it went so far, as you've already touched upon, as to order one of its senior officers in Europe, an accredited diplomat, to bomb the NCRI gathering in Paris very recently. And that's why our statement also reiterates the consensus of the House of Commons that the United Kingdom government and international partners should proscribe the IRGC in its entirety.
بارونس اولون: مفتخرم که در میان 525 نماینده مجلسی هستم که از این ابتکار بسیار مهم در مورد ایران حمایت کردند. زیرا این به رسمیت شناختن حقانیت مبارزه مردم ایران برای یک جمهوری آزاد، دمکراتیک با جدایی دین و دولت است.
Good afternoon, Madam Rajvi. Good afternoon, colleagues. It's a privilege to be among the 525 parliamentarians who have supported this very important initiative worldwide on Iran, because it's a recognition of the legitimacy of the Iranian people's struggle for a free, democratic, secular republic. And I think it's a recognition of the fact for 44 years, the Iranian people have resisted tyranny and oppression and a despotic regime. And I really do salute the courage of all those who have supported the resistance movement over the years, and particularly the young girls. In the uprising, which was sparked by the savage death in custody of Mahsa Amini in September last year, over 750 freedom-loving Iranians lost their lives. Tens of thousands are currently in jail, and they face cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment and punishment. They endure torture and sexual violence. We know that the Iranian regime has an atrocious record on human rights. It executes more people than anywhere else in the world. Last month alone, some 146 Iranians were executed in Iran, which even by the standards of this despotic government is an increase in the number and rate of executions. The Iranian regime's savagery and brutality knows no bounds. They've now started gassing schoolgirls to punish them for taking part in anti-government demonstrations and to deter them from continuing to support you in attempting to overthrow this fundamentalist dictatorship. But I think that the girls, and indeed all the Iranian people, are more determined than ever to succeed in their struggle. Madam Rajavi, you and the Iranian people deserve our unreserved support as you pursue your democratic aspirations. And that's why I am so pleased to be part of this very important worldwide initiative. It speaks volumes about the worthiness of the cause and your determination to overthrow the Iranian regime and to establish a secular and democratic republic. Your 10-point plan, which has already been referred to, sets out the blueprint for a future Iran which has gender equality, a separation of religion and state, and a republic founded on universal suffrage and pluralism. We, the UK government and the international community, must stand beside you in your struggle for your inalienable rights, your human rights, your fundamental freedoms. There are many ways we can help you. Most importantly, perhaps, is the need to prescribe the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, which is responsible for both domestic repression on an enormous scale and international terrorism. The United States have already done it. There is no reason why the United Kingdom have not done it now. And furthermore, we must continue as Parliament to hold the Iranian regime accountable for rights and violations and to stand with you. Thank you very much.
بارونس ورما: همه ما خواهان یک ایران آزاد و دموکراتیک هستیم. بیانیه امروز که قدرت 525 نماینده پارلمان را نشان می‌دهد فراحزبی است و سخت تلاش می‌کند تا مطمئن شود که این موضوع پیوسته شعله‌ور باشد.
Madam Rajvi, my dearest sister, friends, colleagues here, parliamentarian colleagues here, and our friends in Ashraf 3. It's great to see you in Parliament today, be it by Zoom, but at least we're in Parliament. And we all want a free and democratic Iran, and I think the letter, the statement today demonstrates the strength of 525 parliamentarians cross-party working hard to make sure that the issue is constantly on the burner. Madam Rajvi, you know my advocacy for women and girls, and here is where I think that women and girls have demonstrated by being at the forefront of all the demonstrations and protests going on in Iran about the strength that they bring in ensuring that we never lose sight of the awful behavior of the Mullah dictatorship. Their regime is dictatorial, it's tyrannical, it's evil. And they should fear that these protests are not going away. The world has now seen what Iran is capable of if we support the Iranian people properly. We know that the time is getting closer to a regime change where the NCRI and my colleagues have laid that out superbly this morning, and I echo every single word, that we have to make sure that we have complete gender equality. We have complete political, social, cultural and economic rights and equal participation for everyone, particularly for women and for girls. Their voices have been suppressed for too long. We will urge our government, and they should urge other governments, to make sure that we come to the end of this awful, misogynist rules of this mullah-based regime that is in Iran today. I will always be there for you, my dearest sister. You have been a close friend and will remain so. And we will fight at every level for you. But we want to also join in thanking all of the volunteers you have in this country who on a daily basis work tirelessly to ensure that everybody is kept alight of all the things that are happening in Iran today. Thank you so very much indeed.
ترزا ویلیرز: از اقدامات انجام شده شما خانم رجوی برای پیشبرد هدف جمهوری دمکراتیک با جدایی دین و دولت در ایران که از برابری زن و مرد حمایت می‌کند استقبال می‌کنم.
It's good to be with so many friends and colleagues who, like me, want to see justice, freedom, democracy and equality in Iran. I've come straight from Foreign Office questions in the chamber of the House of Commons this morning, in which I repeated my constant demand of the last few years that the UK government should prescribe the IRGC. And I was pleased that other colleagues made that call as well. There is strong support from that in the House of Commons, and it's been expressed on many occasions. I want to pay a heartfelt tribute to the British Iranian community who are very bravely speaking out about human rights abuses in Iran, about the malevolent influence of that regime in so many parts of the world. Another matter I've raised over the years is grave concerns about the Islamic Centre of England, and finally I think we're seeing some regulatory enforcement there. And it remains a real source of concern and distress to me when I think of the human rights abuses which are taking place on a daily basis in Iran. The shocking record of the Iranian regime when it comes to capital punishment with thousands of people over the years, including children. It is truly appalling that this continues to happen. So that is why I will continue to speak out against these abuses, and I welcome the work being done by you, Mrs. Rajvi, and by many in this room to promote the goal of a democratic, secular Republic of Iran, which protects equality for men and women, equality for religious minorities, and I hope one day we will see that those protests by the brave men and women of Iran will generate real change, and we will see at last a free Iran. Thank you.
استیو مکی: خانم رجوی، ما باید به طرح 10 ماده‌ای شما، طرحی برای دموکراسی، آزادی و دولتی مبتنی بر جدایی دین و دولت امیدوار باشیم.
Madam Rajavi, it's a pleasure to see you this morning And can I begin by saying I'm pleased and proud to be one of over 500 British parliamentarians who signed a statement of support for the Iranian people. I know that things are pretty grim in Iran at the moment as this evil regime grows more desperate, but I think there are also some real signs of hope. I think we should be hopeful when we see the defiance of young people in Iran towards this regime, the bravery of young women in challenging the morality police, and the refusal of parents and families to be silent over their arrested and disappeared loved ones. And of course, Madam Rajvi, we should be hopeful about your 10-point plan, a blueprint for democracy, freedom, and a secular state. And my view is that now is the time for the free world to ratchet up the pressure on the mullahs in Tehran. Many of my colleagues have said now is the time to ban the IRGC, now is the time to break off diplomatic relations with this regime, now is the time to make it clear we are no longer in the business of dealing with them. And on appeasement, I just want to say that there seemed to be of late quite a lot of talk about phony coalitions and reinvented monarchies. Well, as far as I'm concerned, the people of Iran want democracy and freedom. That's what I'm about, that's what I believe you're about, and that's what I think we should all work together to try and deliver based on the ideas contained in your 10-point plan. I wish you all the best.
راجر گیل. خانم رجوی، تعداد بسیار زیادی از اعضای هر دو مجلس مشتاقانه از آنچه شما به دنبال دستیابی به آن هستید حمایت می‌کنند و با قاطعیت پشت سر شما هستند.
Well, Chairman, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Rajvi. It's a delight to hear from you.
Thank you.
And to see you again. But there are an enormous number of members of both of our houses of Parliament, on both sides of both houses of Parliament. And the Chairman has indicated this to you by quoting the number, who are passionately in support of what you are seeking to achieve, staunchly behind you, and staunchly behind the endeavours, and will remain so until the end result is achieved, of all of those of you who are working quite simply in the cause of democracy. It is that cause that we so fiercely defend in these houses of Parliament, and that we believe you have a right to in your country. Thank you very much.